Hello, welcome to Board Game TV. I hope you're having a happy Halloween. And for our special Halloween video, I wanted to do my list of John Carpenter movies from worst to best. And I'm going to have my son and my daughter with me to do it as well, kind of like we did our MCU video. Now, John Carpenter has been and is my favorite director. I think he will always be my favorite director. I think he is one of the greatest directors to come out of Hollywood, and I know a lot of people will kind of poo-poo on that, but hear me out. First of all, he's had 3 movies remade, and he has another 2 on the way. Now, I don't know if you can name any other director who's had 3 movies remade and potentially 5 movies remade. The movie Halloween is a staple of the Halloween season. As a matter of fact, I think it actually helped the holiday grow, because when I was a kid, Halloween was popular, but it was nowhere near as popular till the movie came out. And I think the holiday and the movie go hand in hand, and I think have helped propel the holiday. The movie did. And, you know, the movie franchise is still going after all these years. I think the only other franchise that can say that would be the James Bond franchise. I mean, they just did Halloween. They're fixing to do 2 more Halloween movies. And, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and here we are. So, they established a franchise that is still to this day going strong. It plays on TV every year during Halloween. And as far as the music goes, you have many different types of musical pieces through many different musical genres. But you walk up to anybody on the street and you play the Halloween theme, I guarantee you they're going to know what that song is. Everybody knows it. It's a household thing. The Thing, which was much maligned when it first came out, is the standard for science fiction and special effects. I think The Thing changed the way special effects are done in the industry, and for a long time it was a good thing. Now CGI has kind of replaced everything, and people can look back, and often do, and say, look at The Thing. They can't even do it today with computers. The prequel to The Thing, which that's another big accomplishment, because I can't name any other directors had a prequel made for a movie of such a classic like that. Halloween was the most successful independent movie up until, I think, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in '91, and it opened the door for the slasher franchise. I would dare to argue that we would not have the slasher boom that we did in the 80s if not for Halloween and its success. It put 2 movie stars on the map, Jamie Lee Curtis and Kurt Russell, and revitalized Donald Pleasence's career. Think of the different type of movies we would not have if those 2 actors had not been starred in those movies. And then we cannot forget the fact that he writes, directs, and scores most of his movies. Not only has his movies been an influence on many directors, but also his musical scores have been an influence on many directors in film and many other people in many other genres. The video game industry, music industry in particular. I mean, he goes now and he goes around the country and he tours and he plays themes from his movies in live concerts with his movies playing on a film screen in the background, and he sells out pretty good. Who else can do that? John Williams? I know John Williams does do it. I know people do John Williams' themes like that. But, you know, there have been a lot of successful composers in the movie business. And I dare say he's one of the best ones. His themes are just synonymous, and they bring a certain feel, and they influenced many people. Steven Spielberg is probably, I would consider, the best, most famous director in Hollywood. If you look at his career, he's had many massive hits. And I would say John Carpenter is almost at that level, if not equal to. And yes, he's had his share of movies that weren't that good, but I think as a whole, what he brought, how he changed cinema is amazing. I just think that his filmography, the music he brought to it, the fact that he worked mostly on low budgets outside of big Hollywood productions, and what he was able to bring to our culture. And we all can reference a lot of these movies, especially people my age. The younger ones will enjoy them in times to come as more of his movies get remade, and they say, hey, I like the remake, but I want to watch the original and see how much better it is. Now, there's a few things I want to say when we go forward and name our movies. In this list, we're going to have 16 movies. I am not doing any of his TV or anthology movies. So something like The Eyes of Laura Mars or Elvis, stuff like that. On TV, I don't really consider to be in the same league. I mean, TVs have standards. He has to do what they say. They're different formats. So we're not going to count any of his TV movies. I'm not counting any of his anthology stuff either, like Body Bags, which he only directed one segment out of 3 in that, and his Masters of Horror episodes, because those are not feature films. I will not be covering Dark Star, because Dark Star was a college project that took many years that he also did with Dan O'Bannon, so it's not fully his. It's also Dan O'Bannon's as well. And then the one movie that I think gives a lot of people, or has a lot of controversy around it that people don't realize, is Memoirs of the Invisible Man. I'm not going to be doing that one either. Now, technically, he did direct that movie, and he did have his name on the finished product where it says John Carpenter's Memoirs of the Invisible Man. But if you go behind the scenes and you know the backstory behind it, it was basically a Chevy Chase movie. And Chevy Chase just he wanted to get out of comedy. At that time, he was known for his comedic acting with movies like National Lampoon's Vacation, Christmas Vacation, all that kind of stuff. And so the studio hired John Carpenter to direct this movie, but Chevy Chase made many changes, and the studio often sided with Chevy Chase. And John was just basically got to the point where he was like, okay, you know what, I'll just take my paycheck, action, cut, print scene, and then Chevy Chase would go and do whatever. And so I think though technically it may be a John Carpenter movie, I think he really didn't have any control over it, and he really didn't get to put much input, and it was more of a Chevy Chase thing. So I'm not going to be counting that movie in this list. We're going to be starting, the first movie chronologically is Assault on Precinct 13, and we're going to go all the way to his last movie he directed, The Ward. So 16 movies total. We got a big order here. My list will not be a lot of people's list. I know my kids will have a little bit of a differing opinion than me. I know everybody has different opinions, so please refrain from being mean in the comments and saying, hey, your list sucks, or no way you could have liked this, or how come this one wasn't better. But, you know, I would be interested to see what your list is, or what your favorite John Carpenter movies are. So please leave those in the comments, but no negative stuff. And my kids, you know, they're from a younger generation. They didn't grow up watching these movies. I grew up watching these movies. They see these now, and they hear about remakes, and they see remakes, and they want to go see the original, or they'll see something on every October when Fear Fest or something comes on, and the Halloween movies are playing. They'll see them on that way. So they have a different take on that and his themes. We're also going to be covering our favorite themes in this episode as well. So, alright, here we go. Okay, my number 16 is John Carpenter's The Ward. Now, this movie was made in 2010. It had been almost 10 years since he had made a movie last, which was Ghost of Mars. And after that debacle and frustration that he had, he basically quit making movies. And so when this was announced, I was very excited. I was like, all right, my favorite director, the King, he's going to come back, he's going to return, and he's going to make a movie. And it's going to be good because he hasn't made one in a long time, and he's got all this creative stuff going, and here we go. And so I saw this movie, and boy, was it a big disappointment. The big problem with this movie is it doesn't feel like a John Carpenter movie. It just feels like somebody made a movie and stuck his name on it. Feels like maybe he was there and then, you know, half-assed it, or he was there and he let somebody else direct and just got a paycheck for it. This just has none of the John Carpenter style and feel to it. The acting's okay, but the story is, you know, it's so-so. It has a good premise, and it's not really gory for you gore hounds out there. So the music is forgettable. It's not done by John Carpenter, and yeah, it just, and he hasn't made a movie since this. So that tells you, I guess, what his mentality was. I'm thinking maybe that he thought that he might ease back into movie making and see how it feels. Kind of got there, did it, and he's like, I really don't want to make movies anymore. So who knows? But that's my number 16, John Carpenter's The Ward. Okay, CJ, what's your number 16?
Ghost of Mars.
Ghost of Mars. Okay.
It just felt like a really bad version of Assault on Precinct 13, which was a really good movie, but I didn't really understand the premise about how, like, they just went mad because of, well, it's forgettable because I forgot. And its effects, I mean, when people died by the saws, those were good effects, but it just didn't come out good, especially with Ice Cube in it.
Yeah. Okay. Issa, what's yours?
It's vampires.
Okay.
So this movie had stupid characters. They were stupid. They were rude. The story's pretty dumb. The only thing I liked about it was the priest character. I thought he was cute, and he was a good character.
Okay. So my number 16 is The Ward, CJ's is Ghost of Mars, and Issa's is Vampires. Okay, for my number 15, it is Starman. Now, John Carpenter made this movie as a big apology, really, to everybody for making The Thing. We'll get into that when the time comes. And he wanted to prove that he can make a happy, feeling good movie with a good alien and not horror type based stuff. So he made Starman. Now, Starman is well acted. Jeff Bridges does a fantastic job. The movie is shot great. John Carpenter did a great job with the movie. No doubt about that. My problem is I just don't like John Carpenter happy movies. So that's my big beef with this movie. Not anything technical he did, not the way it was shot, not the acting, just that, you know, I'm not a big happy John Carpenter movie guy, and this is the only one he made that was really a happy movie, and so, you know, it's at the bottom of my list. Not a bad movie, and I think everybody who discovers John Carpenter or who likes John Carpenter should watch it. It is watchable multiple times, but yeah, and the theme, he doesn't do the music for this either, and the music in this movie is kind of forgettable. I mean, it has a kind of a catchy main theme, sci-fi sound to it, but it's nowhere near as good as I think anything he could have done. So that's my big beef with Starman. CJ, what's your number 15?
Starman. Again, I agree with most of your points.
So Starman is your number 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's a bad movie, but I agree. It just doesn't feel like something John Carpenter would make. It feels like something Steven Spielberg would make.
Okay.
But yeah, the theme isn't that good. Kind of went a bit harsh on it and gave it a.
All right. Okay, so Starman. Issa, what's your number 15?
So my number 15 is Escape from LA.
Okay.
And it is because it's basically just Escape from New York, but like worse.
Yeah.
And that I really like the ending though. I thought the ending was like, oh yeah, that's a nice.
Oh, there's one more thing I want to say about the Ward. And the Ward, I'm gonna go back on the Ward has it's one of those movies that came from the time where every movie has to have a twist to it. So the Ward has a twist to it. So once you've seen the movie one time, the replay value is very low because you already know the twist. That's the thing I wanted to say about the Ward. So my number 15 is Starman. CJ, your number 15 is Starman, and Issa, your number 15 is Escape from LA.
Yep.
Okay. All right, my number 14 is Ghost of Mars. Yeah. What can we say? I think CJ did say pretty good where Ghost of Mars kind of feels like a updated sci-fi version of Assault on Precinct 13. But just not as good. The characters die off in this movie very unceremoniously. I mean, one minute they're there, the next minute they're dead. Ice Cube is horrible in this movie. This is when he first got into acting, so I guess that can be forgiven a little bit. But yeah, he's not that good in this movie, and the movie just feels like a big mess. I mean, I just don't know what to say. I hate the way they tell the story out of order, and they keep doing all these flashbacks. So right at the beginning of the movie, you know, everybody's dead except for Natasha Henstridge's character, because she's telling the story of what happened. That didn't make any sense to me. Yeah, the more I used to like this movie a lot more, but the more I watch it, the less I like it. The more I think, ugh, boy, I can't believe he made this. The rock and roll music is okay to me. I do like the main theme. But yeah, Assault on Precinct Light, or Assault on Precinct Mars, kind of what this is. Yeah, it kind of falls flat a little bit for me. So that's going to be my number 14. CJ, you're number 14.
The Ward. I think that good compliments for this movie would be the kills and the characters. The characters do have good. Well, I guess each character is different and that makes it better, but again, its twist is so just out of order. I don't think that the twist in this movie is that good. Mm-hmm. That, well,
don't spoil it.
I won't.
Okay.
I feel like it could have been better in pretty much everything except the characters and some of the kills. But, yeah.
Okay. Well, Issa, what's your number 14?
So my number 14 is also Ghost of Mars.
Yeah.
You know, I think it has, I think the actors are just there. And there's throwaway characters. I think it's a really dumb concept. I think it is like Assault on Precinct, just dumbed down to like the lowest level possible and then turned into sci-fi.
Yeah.
And it's gory just to be gory. There's no reason for it to be gory other than just to add effect to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So my number 14, Ghost of Mars. CJ's number 14, The Ward. And Issa's number 14, Ghost of Mars. Okay, so for the first shocker on this list, in my opinion, my number 13 is Assault on Precinct 13. Now, I've seen this movie many times. I've seen this movie just a couple years after it came out. I remember seeing it on HBO in like 79, 78, something of that nature. And I've seen it many times through the years. It's another one that I kind of, the more I watch it, the less I like it. And I don't know why. The low budget, even though I'm a big fan of low budget stuff and I can tolerate low budget, this one's really low budget and it kind of wears on the movie. The acting for this movie is not that good either. I'm sorry. I'm just not a big fan of the acting, and I wish they would have got more into the gang aspect. So, I mean, it's a decent, low-budget John Carpenter movie. I just think he's had much better. It's a great starting point, and he would improve, but yeah. Assault on Precinct 13 to me just hasn't aged as well. I do like the theme to it, but the other music for it I really don't care for. So, and it's basically a remake, and John Carpenter will tell you it's basically a remake of a Howard Hawks film. So he basically just modernized one of the Howard Hawks, Rio Bravo or something like that, one of Howard Hawks' films. He just modernized it. So there we go. Assault on Precinct 13 is my number 13. CJ, your number 13?
Was Escape from LA. Again, I don't like this movie. The effects, somehow they managed to make, how many years was this before, like, Star Wars Episode 1?
Like 4.
That was after a whole bunch of films with great effects. Starman had better effects. But it might be the Blu-ray. The ending is very good. The characters are pretty much the same from the last movie. Well, not the same, but it feels like it's inspiration from the last movie, like the driver, the taxi driver, and the guy with the weird hat.
Yeah.
They just...
Map to the Stars, Eddie.
Yeah.
So you're number 13. All right, Issa, you're number 13.
My number 13 is The Ward. I used to like this movie. I remember seeing it for the first time. I think I watched it with my sister, and I remember thinking it was really good. And then I remember finding out it was from John Carpenter, and I was like, oh, this is a John Carpenter, and I got excited. Well, I hadn't seen it in a really long time, and I remember it being better than it was, but turns out it was not better than it was. The ending was really dumb. It has a whole bunch of jump scares, but of course it was made in like a time where movies had jump scares, and where there was a twist at every ending. The actors are good. I like the actors in it, and it is the epitome of 2010.
Okay. All right, so my number 13 is Assault on Precinct 13's. CJ's is Escape from LA, and Issa's is The Ward. Okay, so my number 12 is Escape from LA. I think I could say what everybody else says. It feels too much like Escape from New York. It's a worse version of Escape from New York. However, a lot of people don't understand what Escape from LA really was. It wasn't meant to be really a sequel. It was meant to be a satire on Hollywood and the world in general. And I think as a satire, it works pretty well. It would probably be ranked better on this list. But too often, John Carpenter doesn't make sequels. And the one movie he made a sequel to, although I would argue I'd rather him make sequels to another movie, Escape from LA would have been one I would have been like, yeah, I'd like to see the Snake Plissken character come back. And he is right for a sequel. I just think that they played it too safe, and they did too much satire, where the first one had this gritty, dark, dystopia version of the world. This one has more of a MTV of the 90s and satire feel to it. And I understand that's what they were going for, as I didn't want them to go for that. So this movie was in many ways a disappointment to me. I do think Kurt Russell's still very good as Snake, but all the other characters, except for maybe Map to the Stars Eddie, the other ones are just forgettable. The rock and roll score to it is forgettable, except for I like Rob Zombie's song on there. That one's pretty good. And the music score itself is okay. And I do like the ending. I think it's a cool little John Carpenter tip of the hat ending to the world. But yeah, Escape from LA, totally different tone, totally different movie. And the effects, like my son said, look, there's PlayStation 1 era effects that are better than the effects. I can't believe this movie was released with some of the effect shots of the submarine and the helicopters. Way too much horrible CGI in this movie. Horrible CGI. I don't know what they were thinking releasing it. So yeah, Escape from LA. it gets to be my number 12. And the reason it's not the worst movie on here is because I get the satire thing they were going for. And that's basically it. Okay, CJ, you're number 12?
Yes, this is the last not good film on my list. Village of the Damned.
Okay.
This film is a pretty good film, but it has a lot of flaws. I mean, the effects are pretty good, I will say. The score, the music, I gave it a 7.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much forgot what the theme was. But I like the premise, and I liked a lot of things about it. But okay, the ending was not that good. I forgot about it,
Okay.
and I think I might want to say this. I think it might be the worst ending on my entire list.
Okay. All right.
Pretty good film.
Yeah. So you got anything bad to say about it? You got number 12 on your list, and you're talking about, this is a pretty good film, I just don't like this. Okay. All right. Lisa, you're number 12.
Is also Village of the Damned,
Okay.
actually. I think it was weird in a good way. This is also my last bad movie. A lot of it doesn't make sense. I think there's like a couple plot holes here and there. There's throwaway characters, like some of the kills are just there to be, kills. I think the kids are like so dumb. Like their characters are stupid. Like even though they're aliens, they try to be smart, but like they're dumb.
Yeah, that is another thing.
Like there's easier ways around things, is what I'm trying to say. I thought the ending was good, but I don't remember the ending, so...
The actress for the kids was probably the best thing about
yeah,
the
one of
kids.
them looks like Cole Sprouse. So.
Okay.
One of them looks
All
like
right.
Tom
So
Holland.
that's my number 12, Escape from L.A., CJ's Village of the Damned, and Issa's Village of the Damned. Okay, my number 11 is Village of the Damned. What can I say? It feels more like a TV or made for cable movie than a theatrical movie. And it's just, I think the big thing about this movie is just average. It's just okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's just in the middle somewhere. I think the acting by Christopher Reeve and Christy Alley's done pretty good. The little kids do a good job, being that they're little kids, I think the premise is just pretty interesting. I think everything is shot well. I think his music score is okay. It just feels like an average made for TV movie that he just did for a paycheck. And, normally if an average TV type movie done by a director for a paycheck was done, it would be terrible. But this movie surprisingly just isn't terrible. It's interesting. It's just boring at some parts, I hate to say. And so yeah, I kind of agree with the kids on some of the Village of the Damned stuff, but that's why it's my number 11. I don't think it's where the kids said that, okay, from there on all the movies will be good. I can actually watch Village of the Damned and like it. So I don't think it's terrible. But yeah, my number 11, Village of the Damned. CJ?
Okay, every film, including Village of the Damned before Village of the Damned, is really, really good. That's why Prince of Darkness is at number 11. It's not a bad film.
Okay.
Don't think it's a bad film because it's at number 11. There's just not enough bad John Carpenter
Yeah.
movies. I really did like this movie. It had great effects, an okay premise, probably the second best film in the Armageddon Apocalypse
Trilogy.
trilogy. The villain is Alice Cooper, and I think he does above average job for a.
Okay.
The soundtrack The soundtrack is okay. I think that John Carpenter pretty much aced the spot he was trying to go for this movie. Feels like since they can't get out, it feels like a really scary version of Assault on Precinct, but like they're defenseless.
Okay.
So.
All right. AC, you're number 11.
Is also Prince of Darkness. And I think it is also because there's not enough bad movies. Prince of Darkness is so unique. It's such a good movie. And there's just enough gore in it, too, to be like, yes, this is a good amount of gore. There's good acting. Amazing actors in this movie. There's the plot twist is, it's okay. It's pretty good, though. And I did not like the ending to Prince of Darkness, though.
Okay. Alright, so my number 11, Village of the Damned. CJ's number 11 is Prince of Darkness. And Issa's number 11 is Prince of Darkness. Alright, my number 10 is Christine. Now, John Carpenter admits he made this movie for a paycheck. Because he was looking for work, because he couldn't get any work after making The Thing. So he made this movie for a paycheck. He did a good job with this movie. It does differentiate from the Stephen King novel in one aspect with the Roland character. In the novel, the dead ghost of Roland is always in the back seat of the car, or in Christine. He's the original owner of it. And he's kind of possessing the car and Arnie maybe a little bit. They left that whole plot point out. So if you're a Stephen King purist, you may not like this movie. As far as Stephen King movies go, I think it's one of the better ones, actually. There are a lot of Stephen King movies out there that just are garbage. And there's few that are really great. And then there's some that are good. And I think Christine is in the good category. It's nowhere near as great as, let's say, The Shining or The Stand or It. But it's not terrible either, or boring like, I don't know, Thinner or some people like Pet Sematary. Pet Sematary is not terrible. Pet Sematary is okay. Or Maximum Overdrive and stuff like that. The effects are really good. I'm real impressed how they did the car effects. I think Christine does come across as his own character. I like Arnie's performance as from a bullied nerd to a psychotic dude towards the end. I think John Carpenter's score on this movie is pretty good. However, I'm a connoisseur of John Carpenter's scores, and at the same time he was doing this, he was scoring Halloween 3. If you listen to this and Halloween 3, they're very much alike. They're almost verbatim, some sounds and some cues in it. And I think that detracts a little bit for me because I think the Halloween 3 score is better. I think he actually may have been doing that one first before he did the Christine score. So, Christine is, a good Stephen King movie adaptation, a good John Carpenter movie, just kind of made for all the wrong reasons, but he pulled it off. And so, yeah, my number 10 is Christine. CJ, you're number 10.
In the Mouth of Madness.
Okay.
Really, really, really good film. I did not actually see all of it, though. But after this film, after Village of the Damned, the film started going downhill. But by the time that I did watch it, the characters were good. The music was good. And I can't say a lot about it because I haven't fully seen it.
Okay. But you like what you saw?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot.
Issa, number 10.
Okay. It is Assault on Precinct 13.
Mm-hmm.
I love Assault on Precinct 13. I think it is very good. There's a character in there that looks like Ted Bundy, so, we kind of had that joke the entire time. At first, the acting is not very good, but I think towards the end it gets better. I think it's funny, also. I think it's very memorable, and I think the ending is very good, too.
Okay. Alright, so my number 10 is Christine. CJ's number 10 is In the Mouth of Madness, and Issa's number 10 is Assault on Precinct 13. Okay, my number 9 is John Carpenter's Vampires. I think this is John Carpenter's last really good movie. I think the premise is pretty cool that the church has hired a bunch of mercenaries to kill vampires, and that vampires do exist. I think the score for it is very good. I think it has a good Old West theme to it. And this movie did spawn 2 sequels, though they were direct-to-video and John Carpenter really had nothing to do with them. And James Woods is fantastic as Crow in this movie. I like this movie. I'm not a big vampire movie guy, but one of the few vampire movies I like because it does have John Carpenter's distinct feel to it and sound and look to it. And it's basically a Western, but with vampires. And with psychos that are the vampire hunters, they're kind of almost as crap characters as the vampires are. The vampire's done okay. I think they could have did better with him. But yeah, John Carpenter's Vampires to me is pretty good. I remember seeing that in the theater and coming out liking it, and every time I watch it, I still like it. So that's going to be my number 9 is Vampires. CJ, your number 9.
Escape from New York.
Okay.
It was a really good action film. Things bad I have to say about it, the effects, but it was excusable, unlike Escape from LA, because at that time, well, it could still be the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray pretty much messes up effects from old movies. Ain't that old. Snake Plissken is a really, really good character. I'm pretty sure one of the people in the film said that he's not a one-man army, and I can kind of agree. He tries to play out being tough, but the Duke is a okay villain. And the ending, it's a good plot twist for an action movie.
Okay. Issa, your number 9.
It's also Escape from New York. This movie is funny. I think it goes in my iconic category with movies that are really iconic for John Carpenter.
Yeah.
I think the setting is really good and the effects are bad, but they're bad and it's really funny. So I think it's completely excusable. I really liked the ending and obviously good actors. The movie is very unique.
Okay. So my number 9 is Vampire, CJ's number 9 is Escape from New York, and Issa's number 9 is Escape from New York. Okay, my number 8 is Escape from New York. I think this movie is great for what it is. I prefer John Carpenter do pure horror or pure science fiction. This is more of an action dystopia type future type movie. But it's very good, and of course it is low budget, and so some of the effects are going to suffer, but it's amazing what they were able to do on such a low budget. The cast of characters are all colorful, and I like them all, and of course Kurt Russell, this is his favorite role in any John Carpenter movie. He said that. He loves the character Snake Plissken. A lot of people do. That's why a sequel was made. That's why comic books have been made about him. He's an iconic character, and I kind of wish they would have done more over the years with the Snake Plissken character. A great science fiction. It has a ton of knockoffs, especially foreign made knockoffs. But great movie, Escape from New York. The only reason, like I said, it's as higher up is because it's more of an action than horror and science fiction. That's the only reason. So the soundtrack. I do love the soundtrack. I think it's one of John Carpenter's better soundtracks. It definitely is Escape from New York, especially the theme with the Duke. That's a really good theme. So Escape from New York is my number 8. CJ, your number 8.
Is the Precinct 13.
Assault on.
Yes. Assault on Precinct 13. They both said good points about it, but I think that the Ted Bundy character in Green Mile, not Green Mile, but but all the characters pretty good, except that girl character that died midway through the film.
Okay.
The acting is bad, but it's bad to a point where it's good.
Okay.
And the soundtrack is probably my second favorite soundtrack for an action movie made by John Carpenter.
Okay. All right, Issa, you're number 8.
Oh, my number 8, you all finna be mad at me. It's Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay.
It's really funny. I think it has really good characters. It's a very unique concept too. This one is also iconic, I feel like, for John Carpenter, and it's a fun movie to watch. You can have a lot of fun watching it. And I think the ending is very memorable too.
Okay. All right, so my number 8 is Escape from New York. CJ's number 8 is Assault on Precinct 13. And Issa's number 8 is Big Trouble in Little China. Okay, my number 7 is The Fog. The follow-up to Halloween had big shoes to fill. And John Carpenter himself has never been happy with this film. Although, I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's a great movie. It's just a different take. I like the characters. I think the mood and the atmosphere he builds in this movie is fantastic. I think the locations that the movie takes place are beautiful. I think the soundtrack is one of his best soundtracks. I think this movie does everything right, but you know, in a list of John Carpenter movies, it's you know, I don't know, it's not as good as some of the others to me, even though this is a very good film. And it's one of them ones that the more I watch it, the more I like it. So if I ever made another list like this, I may like it more. I love the ghost pirate, the zombie pirate guys. I love the ending. I love how the fog is itself its own character. And I think just everything messes well with this film. It's a great kind of PG, almost spooky, moody film. Takes just a little long to get going, but you know, that's on me. And that's The Fog. That's going to be my number 7. CJ, your number 7?
My number 7 is Vampires.
Okay.
Vampires. Everything he said, but flipped on itself, except for the priest. The characters aren't that good.
Okay.
Yes. The action, there isn't that much action. I was torn. Is this an action film? Is this a horror film? Is this a satire film? It's not a satire film. And I'm pretty sure it's not an action film. It's a mix of both.
Okay.
All of these combined.
A thriller.
I mean,
That's what it would
maybe.
be called.
It does have its ups and downs. The soundtrack isn't that good. I gave this movie a low rating, when in reality I liked it, so
Okay.
I could surprise them.
Alright, Issa, your number 7.
My number 7 is In the Mouth of Madness.
Okay.
I really like the movie. I think it is scary. I think it is really unique. I think there's some funny parts to it. It is an odd movie where you're kind of wondering what's going on the whole time, but at the same time you're like intrigued by it. It could be considered weird in a good way. I did think the ending was very confusing though. I had to ask.
Okay.
So.
Alright. So my number 7 is The Fog. CJ's number 7 is Vampires, and Issa's number 7 is In the Mouth of Madness. Okay, my number 6 is John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. I remember when this movie came out. I loved it when it came out. Of course, the populace did not. This movie was a big flop. It was supposed to be a summer blockbuster, and it flopped hard. People just didn't get it. And if you listen to the commentary, you know, Kurt Russell is Jack Burton, and Jack Burton is not the hero of the story. He's the sidekick who's incompetent. And that was the whole joke of the movie. But Fox didn't see it. They wanted Jack Burton to be the hero. They didn't want an Asian guy to be a hero, which is weird because this movie's nothing but Asian flavor to it. So, you know, marketed wrong. Great movie. It was originally supposed to be a Western, if you can believe it. But set Chinatown. I love the performances of Kurt Russell, Kim Cattrall, Dennis Dunn, James Wong, everybody. Everybody does a fantastic job. And of course, We wouldn't have Raiden if we didn't have this movie. Lightning is a blatant Raiden is a blatant ripoff of Lightning, one of the storms in this movie. And this movie has everything. It's funny as hell. It's got action, kung fu action, monsters, ghosts, a little bit of horror, and it has come now to be considered a classic. I think everybody's reconsidered. Even the people who pissed on it when it came out have come and said, "Hey, this movie's great." So, Big Trouble in Little China. This is one of the few movies I would have loved to seen a sequel to. I wish it had done well, so John Carpenter could have made a sequel to this. This one was begging for a sequel. I have the board game, and you see my board game playthrough it. You know how much I love this movie. And to me, honestly, this is probably one of John Carpenter, overall, his best score. He does a lot of different musical cues for this movie, and the score is one of his most complex, and it's just one of his best. Big Trouble in Little China, a classic, a masterpiece. It's getting hard to judge him from here on in, folks. So, hey, that's my number 6. CJ, you're number 6.
Okay. Whew. The Fog.
The Fog.
Yes. Now, before I get into the review, I would probably say that this has the third best or most memorable camera shot in a movie. The shot of the people in the fog, the silhouettes in the fog.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good camera shot. But, yes, the characters are memorable. Well, some of them. The fog is very menacing because, like, fog is something that you could get lost in real life. And, Blake.
Yeah.
That's a good quote. I've got your gold, Blake. Does have a good last second plot twist. I won't say it. But my favorite thing about this movie is the actors.
Okay.
I really do like a lot of actors in this movie. Whether it's the fog people, the radio tower lady, the lighthouse radio tower.
Adrienne Barbeau.
Adrienne, yes. Even the little kid does a good performance. Now,
Issa, you're number 6.
Mine is also The Fog. Somehow me and CJ keep ending up. What's the same? I think he cheated, but The Fog. I think it's so unique. I think it's a good, scary, and enjoyable movie. The acting is amazing. It's got my girl Jamie Lee Curtis in it. I think it's a good, mysterious movie about, what's going on, why is all this going on. I think it's really good, and I kind of agree. Fog doesn't seem scary until, like, you're actually in the fog. So you wouldn't think fog would be scary, but in this movie, yeah, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree with y'all.
It makes something that would happen in real life a lot more scarier if you have just seen the movie.
Yeah. And it has, like, a cliffhanger, but it's also it's a good, satisfying cliffhanger. Like, oh, okay, yeah.
Avoid the horrible remake. Alright, so my number 6, Big Trouble in Little China, CJ's The Fog, and Issa's The Fog. Okay, my number 5 is They Live. Boy, this movie is such a classic masterpiece. John Carpenter's dig at Ronald Reagan and Reaganomics and the excess of unchecked capitalism of the 80s. Although John Carpenter is a capitalist, he admits it. He just doesn't like excess capitalism or unchecked capitalism. But besides that, that was what this movie was about. And it's a great, iconic movie. Everybody knows about the fight scene. Everybody knows about the I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Just a great movie, made on a low budget, and it just goes to prove what talent, ingenuity, and a good story can do on a low budget. This movie has been spoofed, especially with South Park, with the cripple fight, where they redo the fight in this movie between Timmy and the other handicapped kid. It's so funny. many people don't know this, but this movie actually opened at #1 at the box office, and Roddy Piper is the first wrestler to be featured in a #1 movie, not Hulk Hogan. He beat out Hulk Hogan. Although he did get in trouble with Vince McMahon and get fired kind of like from WWE for a while. That's what he did for this movie. And if you listen to the commentary, Roddy Piper, till his dying day, loves John Carpenter and loves this movie. I think this is one of his most proudest accomplishments. And he had a blast doing it. He was thankful to Carpenter that Carpenter chose him, which I think Roddy Piper, for a wrestler, does a really good job as acting in this movie. I know he acted like a movie before this, but I think he does a good job. And of course, the ever Meg Foster, she's great, and of course our boy David Keith, or Keith David, whichever one, he's pretty good in it as well. The moment when he first puts on the sunglasses and sees the world differently, and then the first time he sees one of the aliens, is one of the most iconic, chilling scenes in all of movie history. I mean, when he puts that on and you see what he sees, the first time you see this movie, you're just like blown away. It is one of the most iconic scenes in movie history. And, you know, I recommend everybody, all ages, all people should watch this movie. This movie is just fantastic. So my number 5 is They Live. CJ, you're number 5.
They Live. One thing, don't say that this film is for all ages. At the last scene, never mind.
Oh yeah, okay.
Pretty much everything that my dad said, I would agree with.
How did you feel the first time you saw the movie and he put them glasses on and he sees the alien looking thing?
Well, I've seen that before, but the first time I did see that ever, I was like, what the heck? Oh, that's cool. I have had a lot of encounters with this movie somehow, with just...
Yeah, it still resonates in culture.
Yeah.
It comes up in pop culture a lot.
Like, no joke. A kid at my school was quoting, I'm here to chew bubblegum. He didn't say the curse word.
Yeah.
But I was like, hey, did you get that from They Live? And he was like, no, I got it from Duke Nukem. And I said, actually, Duke Nukem... I explained it, that was in They Live.
Yeah, Roddy Piper came up with that on his own.
Yeah.
That was his own thing. Okay. Issa, you're number 5.
My number 5 is not They Live, but it is Starman. I think Starman deserved the award it got. I don't like lovey movies like that, and I don't like comedies either. But Starman really did blow me away. It was funny. I actually laughed at it. It was really good. It's so unique. Even though it's not scary, I think it does feel like a John Carpenter film. Just in a certain way with the directing. And the directing is amazing too. I think the acting is so good. And the ending is amazing too. And it gives you like this warm feeling. So I really like Starman.
Okay. So my number 5 is They Live. CJ's number 5 is They Live. And Issa's number 5 is Starman. My number 4 is In the Mouth of Madness. In the Mouth of Madness to me is one of the most underrated movies to come out of all time. It's often forgotten, overlooked. I remember when it came out in the early 90s and it just came and went, and you never heard about it. You didn't see any advertisements for it. This movie is fantastic. Sam Neill does he's a fantastic actor. He is a great performance. This is a mix between Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft. I love both of them, especially Lovecraft. This is one of his Apocalypse trilogy movies, the final one actually. And I love how it ends. I love how the whole, well, I can't really spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. But my daughter was right when she mentioned this movie, like what's going on, or don't quite understand. It's one of the movies that keeps getting better the more you watch it, and you do have to pay attention. It's one of the movies where you have to pay attention to everything to get what's going on, and I love the whole twist of the thing. I love the music for this movie. I think John Carpenter does a fantastic score for it. Sam Neill, fantastic performance. Many consider this to be the last great Carpenter movie. I don't, but it is the last great of my favorites. And In the Mouth of Madness, please watch this. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. If you love Lovecraft and Stephen King, please watch it. Very great movie, horror classic, and the ending is just gonna blow you away. So my number 4, In the Mouth of Madness. CJ, you're number 4.
Don't hate me for this. I put Halloween as my number 4.
Okay.
Halloween. This took the bar and put it to a height only a super good, amazing, great horror film could do. It took from you going to the slasher's location, like Psycho and Texas Chainsaw Massacre did, to the slasher to coming to your location. The characters are great. Michael Myers is probably he's my favorite slasher from 1960 to 2000. Well, maybe the Tall Man beats it, but he's not a slasher, or Candyman. But Halloween put a huge impact on the horror genre, and it's probably what many horror fans would say their favorite horror film is. I say that the only film that I can think of that put that big of an impact on it was maybe Friday the 13th Part 4.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Alright, Issa, you're number 4.
My number 4 is They Live. They Live should have won like a billion awards. That movie is one of my favorites of all time. It's so unique and it's so memorable and it's funny, and I think that all the actors are so amazing. They Live it just blows me away. Every time I see it, I like it even more because there's so much you can really get from it. And the ending is so funny. It's like another iconic movie in my little list of iconic movies. And even though it's not scary, it's still one of John Carpenter's best movies like ever. And the score was one of my favorites. And one of his best.
Oh yeah, another thing I'd like to say. This film's theme, my favorite John Carpenter theme ever. Also, it probably gets the second best camera shot of Michael Myers standing behind Laurie Strode in the dark.
Alright.
Oh, well, and a thing about In the Mouth of Madness, Sam Neill he's so amazing. He's such an amazing actor. And I think if it had been anyone other than Sam Neill, it wouldn't have been as good. But Sam Neill does so good, I feel like, in pretty much every role he's ever been in. And yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay. So my number 4, In the Mouth of Madness. CJ's number 4, Halloween. And Issa's number 4 is They. My number 3 is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. This was the first John Carpenter movie I ever saw at the movie theater. That may be why I look at it through such rose-colored glasses. I love the story. I love the premise. I think this movie has a spook factor or a creep factor in its own right. Made after Big Trouble in Little China, when he was kind of disowned by the big studios again. It's another independent film. He takes a bunch of actors, and for a low-budget movie, it gets great performances out of them. For those who liked Big Trouble in Little China, you'll see a couple returning actors. And, Prince of Darkness has just stuck with me through the years. It's the second movie in his Apocalypse trilogy. And for some reason, I don't know, maybe my religious aspect of me just loves the movie. I love the score for the movie. This is my favorite John Carpenter score. I think the score throughout the whole movie is just fantastic. It has this like creep factor to it, or this impending doom factor. And Prince of Darkness, yeah, to me is just one of my favorites. And I love Donald Pleasance. I think he hams it up in this, but I think he does such a great job hamming it up. Alice Cooper does a little memorable performance in this. He brings in one of his kills from his stage show. And I just love how they got to get the devil, anti-God out of the mirror world and the ending when everything's going down and everything's frantic and fast and furious, and you got people fighting here and people fighting there, and Donald Pleasant saves the day and the girl kind of sacrifices herself. It's a real thrill of an ending. And so Prince of Darkness with me has stuck with me through the years, and it will always be one of my favorites. So that's my number 3, is John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. TJ, you're number 3.
The Fog. No, just kidding. It's Christine.
Okay.
Whew. I might be overlooking this, but this is... This film has a lot of things that take a vague horror film, dumbs them down a bit, but then puts it in a big blender that is a horror movie, blends it up and makes this. This film has so much good stuff to it. Just Arnold becoming more insane each time Arnold just what are you laughing at? It's just his descent into madness because he's adoring Christine. Christine itself was something that took a long time to pull off, because I remember they had to like drive it with like a blacked out windshield.
Mm-hmm.
And this probably has one of the best camera shots in John Carpenter's movies, and that is Christine set on fire down the road with the headlights on. The theme is really good too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, Issa, you're number 3.
Is also Christine. Christine feels like a teen movie gone wrong. I think it is one of my favorite movies of all time also, but like really top up there. I remember seeing Christine for the first time and finding out that it was, based on a Stephen King novel. And I enjoyed Christine so much. And I think it was because the actors are amazing. And I do love Stephen King and John Carpenter, so it just adds on. It's like cake, man. Like, it's so good. And I love it so much. And, it's kind of mysterious, like, oh, who's driving Christine? Who's in control?
Okay.
And it's another really iconic movie, I feel. It also kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger. But it also, the cliffhanger isn't extreme. Like, it's like, oh, you left intrigued by...
Yeah, they never meant to make a sequel. They just put that. They weren't going to make a sequel. Okay, so my number 3 is Prince of Darkness.
Also, the ending to Christine wasn't that good, but still locked things off into the prove.
Alright, so CJ's number 3 is Christine, and Issa's number 3 is Christine. Alright, my number 2 is The Thing. I remember when this movie came out. I saw it a little bit after it came out. I was not one of the people that hated the movie. I saw E.T. when it came out too. And that was the big problem, was this came out against E.T. and everybody loved E.T. and the lovey-dovey alien, and nobody wanted the evil alien, and the dread that this movie just plain out flaunts. This is the first of his Apocalypse trilogy movie, and it's great. It's 12 men, and that's something, again, you don't see very often. There's no women in this film. It's 12 men stuck in the Arctic with an alien posing as any one of them at any time, and nothing but dread, tension, and fear the whole movie. A masterpiece. And let's not forget, Ennio Morricone's score is like a heartbeat through the film that just kind of builds and builds and builds. Fantastic. Even though Carpenter didn't do the score, it feels very much like a Carpenter score. And then, of course, we have to talk about the effects. There are movies today that cannot get the effects that this movie does, and cannot do them nowhere near as good. And they have 10 times the budget to do so. And if you want an example of that, watch the prequel to this movie that Carpenter had nothing to do with, where they use CG effects, and the CG effects in it look horrible compared to the practical effects done in this movie by Rob Bottin. Rob Bottin did a fantastic job, although it nearly killed him to do so, and you know, set the standard for special effects. Special effects standard has been set by 2 movies, Star Wars and The Thing, and from there on special effects became a focus, I think, and people started to take special effects more than just being for granted, and because it shows what people can do, what creative people can do on any budget. Because this movie didn't have the biggest budget. It wasn't one of his low budget Carpenter movies, but it had a bigger budget than most of them. But still, compared to what was coming out like E.T., this movie's effects to me are just as good, if not better, than E.T. And it didn't have nowhere near the budget of E.T. So John Carpenter's Thing for me is number 2, a classic, undisputed science fiction masterpiece. Everybody's seen this movie just about, or everybody should see this movie, and this movie's still being talked about to this day. So number 2, The Thing. CJ, what's your number 2?
Big Trouble.
Okay.
Also, I find it a bit funny how Escape from LA didn't have anywhere good effects, but Star Wars and The Thing came out before it. Anyway, Big Trouble in Little Chinatown. My favorite action movie of all time, probably. Again, you two both said pretty good things about the movie. Jack Thornton, good character, not the hero. Do like that. I think Egg Shin did a good performance for the actor who played Egg. Lopan looks cool in both forms because when he's old, it's like, ew, gross, he looks old, ew. But when he's, I'm gonna say the sorcerer form, he also looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Big Trouble.
Okay. Issa, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Halloween.
Okay.
Halloween, it changed the horror genre forever. It is so iconic, and it is considered a classic. Michael Myers is one of my favorite slasher villains. Probably is my favorite slasher villain, actually. It really did change the entire horror community because of just the fact that instead of all these teens going to this place and getting killed, he comes to them and you don't really know why.
Yeah.
It has this kind of mysterious feel, you know, is he human? Because, you know, he can like fall out a window or get hurt and be completely fine. It puts up this kind of mysterious wall to it. Jamie Lee Curtis, this is kind of where she became an iconic movie actor. Halloween has one of the best scores, I think, of all time. It's extremely memorable. John Carpenter's Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, too.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not too gory either. A lot of horror movies now are just kind of gore fest, and the point is, like, you don't have to have a lot of gore to have a good scary movie.
Actually, no, I'd say it's more jump scare fest. They have to censor it gore now because a lot of horror movies has way too much gore and I get censored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright.
Alright, so my number 2 is The Thing. CJ's number 2 is Big Trouble in Little China. And Issa's number 2 is Halloween. Okay, well, my number 1 is Halloween. This is going to be many people's number 1. I remember seeing this movie a year after it came out on HBO. It has stuck with modern culture today. It is probably one of the most influential movies of all time. It is one of the most successful independent movies of all time. It put John Carpenter on the map, put Jamie Lee Curtis on the map, put the slasher genre on the map. Put the holiday of Halloween, I would argue, more on the map. When you think of Halloween, you think of this movie, you think of this score, you think of everything associated with Halloween, you also think of Michael Myers. It's just the way it is. People still go trick-or-treating with it as him, even before the Halloween movie came out last year. He's one of the most iconic killers of all time. And the score, like I said earlier, you could take this musical score up to anybody walking down the street, play it, and they'll know what it's from. You can't do that with every other piece of music. You know, and of course, people don't know who the hell the first president of the United States was, but they'll know who Michael Myers is. I mean, this movie gets played just about on every channel during the month of October, several times. It has, what, right now, if you don't count the remake, it has a remake and a remake sequel. It has 9, 10 movies, 10 sequels to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, H2O, Resurrection. Then you have the remakes. Now you have Halloween, and you got 2 more Halloween movies coming out. The only franchise, the oldest franchise still going next to James Bond. Who'd have thought it would have been a horror movie? A low-budget horror movie is still going 40 plus years later. Nobody. Nobody thought this movie was going to be a hit. Everybody, once it was a hit, tried to copy it, even its own sequels, and they still can't get it right. So, I would say, of course, you know, it may not be proficiently, technically, the greatest movie, or even one of John Carpenter's best movies, technically, but one cannot just forget about the influence on culture and life in general and the world that this movie played upon the world. So Halloween, of course, is my #1 John Carpenter movie, and it will probably always will be my #1 John Carpenter movie. CJ, you're #1.
The Fog. Nah, just kidding. The Thing. The Thing. Whew. Where do I begin? A lot of horror fans' favorite horror film, and some people's favorite John Carpenter film. I'd say it's the only thing that I wouldn't say is perfect about this movie is the soundtrack. It wasn't playing that much in the movie because I can't remember it. But I think that this film, well, I can say this, it's probably better than E.T. Well, I think it's better than E.T. I've seen E.T., I've seen The Thing, and yeah.
Okay. Issa, you're #1.
My #1 is also The Thing. And let me tell you, this movie is a complete game changer. If you don't like, or if you don't really watch horror movies that much, you should definitely watch this horror movie because it will completely change your outlook on horror movies. I think horror movies now are not as good as they were a long time ago. Even the prequel to this movie, it was supposed to have special effects, not like CG or anything, and it actually looked good. If you go and look it up, it actually does look very good. But I don't remember why, but they had to change it and make it CG, and I think that is what actually ruined the whole movie. Of course, The Thing, it's kind of left on a cliffhanger, and it's so unique. It's gory, but it's so good. And you know, I don't like when animals die in horror films, but as you saw on the little screen, obviously one of the dogs is turned into the Thing. And I mean, I remember the first time watching it being like, oh no, doggy, but now I just smile and laugh at it because it's so good. If you just take time to appreciate this movie, I think everyone would like it. It's hard to think that like kind of flopped when it came out, even though now it's like I could watch it over and over again. And the good thing about this movie is you can watch it and try and figure out who is the thing at certain times. And it's a fun movie, it's a scary movie, it's kind of like all types of movies. Yeah. It's extremely iconic. The effects in the movie are like the best effects I think I've ever seen in any movie, and I watch a lot of movies. I don't think I've ever seen any movie that has beat the effects on The Thing. Like, dude who did that should have gotten an award. Like, man, it was so good.
Honestly, the PS2 game is a really good game and has better effects than Escape from LA.
That is true. And, you know, I like cringe at certain stuff when it's gory, I do it sometimes at The Thing. But there's just scenes in that movie where you're like, oh my goodness, because you don't expect it. And I think that's so good about the movie is you can pick out little things from the movie and realize, oh, that person is the thing. That person is the thing. Oh, is he the thing? Oh, well, you don't know. And you can watch it a whole bunch of times and really figure out who it is each time.
Okay.
Also, this film and I think The Fog are the two films that actually really got me on the jump scares because in The Fog...
Which film? Besides The Fog, what film?
The Thing.
Okay.
Because when they were testing the blood and that blood shot up, that actually did scare me.
That was also lampooned on South Park. That was pretty good too.
Oh yeah, and I do think The Thing has extreme memorable scenes, like the defibrillator scene, the dog scene. I think every scene in that movie is just so memorable. Like, somebody will say The Thing and you'll automatically think of the defibrillator scene. Or the scene, like, any scene with fire in it.
Where, the head crawls away.
Yeah.
Or something.
Okay.
But in The Fog, when that rock fell down on our table.
Alright, so now, my number one is Halloween. CJ's number one is The Thing. And Issa's number one is The Thing. Now, real quick, what would be your favorite John Carpenter theme?
Halloween.
Halloween? Issa?
Let me see right quick. Well, it's kind of a tie because I really could not choose what my favorite theme was. All of them are so good, but I think it would be between Halloween and Assault on Precinct 13.
Well, it's either Halloween or Escape from New York. Those are both really good themes.
Okay. Now, what do you got? You know, I grew up watching John Carpenter movies. What do you guys think about John Carpenter as a director, a writer, and a soundtrack composer? You like his movies overall?
Yes, very. I'd say that, again, he's the Steven Spielberg of horror movies. Steven Spielberg. Jaws. Spielberg. I cannot pronounce his name. I think, him and Alfred Hitchcock are the two, when I think of horror films, those are the two directors I think of first. Just like when you say adventure films, I think of Steven Spielberg. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Issa, what do you think about John Carpenter?
I think he is one of the best directors, one of my favorite directors of all time. You know, I think, I mean, obviously Tim Burton's like my favorite anybody to do with movies, but I think John Carpenter is a very close second. His movies are so memorable, and he really put a big impact in horror for today. Like, if he didn't exist, like, I don't even know what this world would be.
If he did not exist, we probably wouldn't have slasher films or that many horror
we probably
films.
Wouldn't have good slasher films.
And I didn't tell them to say that. They said that on their own.
Yeah.
So what is your generation, what do the young kids at your schools, and now Issa, you're in high school, and CJ, you're in middle school, do your other kids know John Carpenter movies?
No? I tell them,
but I think there is something they need to do. They should not remake these films. I think they should bring them back. As like...
But the kids at your school know who Michael Myers is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they ever watched The Thing? They ever know?
No. The kids at my school, they did like, they have a news thing at our school, and they were talking about favorite horror movies. A lot of people said The Conjuring. They watch horror movies from now. They do not watch horror movies from a long time ago.
They would know what Halloween is, but they would not know who directed it.
Okay.
Yeah, they might know what Halloween is. It's disappointing if they
That
don't.
would be
They
like-
know the theme for sure.
That would be
Right.
like the only John Carpenter movie they would probably know. Other
Okay.
than maybe like The Thing. I don't know.
All right. Well, you know, that's the big difference between... I grew up when these movies were coming out. This generation now, he doesn't make movies, and these movies are old. Like Halloween being the exception to the rule, I don't think most of the kids now know who the hell John Carpenter is. Although they heard the song, they would know it. They know who Michael Myers is, but back in the day, anybody my age knows, you know, a director's name meant something. And so if you were a fan of a director, and he had a movie coming out, you would be excited about it. And I don't think this generation, I don't know.
You would say, hey, have you ever seen that film, Prince of Darkness? They'd be like, Prince of what?
It's like CJ said earlier about the chew bubblegum kick ass. Most people know where it came from, but what you say, he got it from Duke Nukem?
Yeah.
And a lot of kids at my school don't watch horror movies. A lot of them do not like horror movies. They're like, I can't watch horror movies. They're too scary. I'm like, are you 5? No. So I don't understand how people can't watch horror movies. But they'll watch like romance movies, and it gets on my nerves.
I will try something at my school. I'll be like, hey, have you seen Prince of Darkness? And I will count up. Whether they say, what? Isn't that Evil Dead 3 or that's a John Carpenter movie? Likely is they won't say, is that Evil Dead 3 or is John Carpenter? But it's sad how we gotta bring these movies back.
Okay.
Yeah,
We shouldn't remake them.
People don't like. I had something else to say, but I don't remember. But I think that you being our dad completely changed like what we could have been like. Like, I'm so glad I'm not annoying and watch romance movies like every other girl. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. All the kids at my school either watch Vampire Diaries or Grey's Anatomy. I don't know why,
But yeah,
but they're all obsessed with it.
if it wasn't for our dad, we would not have
Been
seen these
obsessed
amazing
with good
films.
movies.
If it was not for our dad, I would not know what Iron Maiden is.
Okay. All right, well, that's our top 16 films of John Carpenter in the list order we made. I know we have some shockers there. And, of course, the usual suspects. I think everybody would have thought that Halloween or The Thing would have been everybody's number 1 or number 2. You know, just again to pay tribute to, I think John Carpenter has been and always will be my favorite director. I think he's up there with Spielberg, who I admire a lot as well, but I think, you know, he didn't have the studio backing. He's never had the budgets of Spielberg, and he's never had the notoriety of Spielberg, and that's unfortunate because I think he's contributed a lot to this culture and to this world, just as much, if not more, in some ways than Steven Spielberg. So I hope y'all have a happy Halloween. I know we will. And enjoy this list. And hey, give me your own list. Send me in comments. Let me know what your favorite ones are, or what you agree or disagree with any of us. And so that being said, I hope you have fun. And until the next time, have fun.